Yo, yo, welcome back to Educate Ebony. I'm Ebony, and as usual, let's do a quick little recap of last week before we get into this week's episode. So, last episode, I spoke to Jesse Cash and JT Cavey of Error. Really cool guys, really good chat, and they gave me 2 albums, so I had a lot of homework. We had Controller by Misery Signals and The Fall of Ideals by All That Remains. For Controller, Jesse said it was an experience. So I took myself up to Mount Coot-tha Lookout and I watched the sunrise. I took my little speaker and it was beautiful. And then for The Fall of Ideals, JT said it was a gym album. So I went to the gym and I lifted the heavy. I did some deadlifts. And this is where I say that if you want to see what I did for the listening notes, you can head to my socials. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's all there under @EducateEbony. If you want to check my deadlift form, if you want to see how heavy I lifted, go have a look. But in terms of the albums, I think I liked Controller just a little bit more than The Fall of Ideals. Only because I feel like everything just blended a lot nicer. I don't know if this makes sense, but I feel like the vocals weren't just sitting on top of the music. They sort of merged a bit more with the music, so it was all just one sound. And I liked it. I think that Coma, especially the intro, that was my favourite. That was a really good song. And The Fall of Ideals, yeah, I liked it, but I just wasn't such a big fan of the unclean vocals. I don't know, I think they just sounded a bit too pig squealy, death metal-y for me. Probably wasn't even that bad, but it just didn't click with me. I did really like their guitar solos, and I think the clean vocals were really, really nice. And I think 6 was my favourite. So it was a good time, for sure. But moving on. Okie dokie, for this episode of Educate Ebony, the metal edition, I would love to introduce Nikki Brumen. She is an incredible metal vocalist, and you may know her previously from Pagan, where she taught us how to properly handle a bottle of red wine. And
properly, or maybe not.
Properly.
So properly.
And you can now see her own the stage as the new frontwoman for Norwegian band Blood Command. Nikki, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to educate you.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. Yes, I'm so ready. I was trying to figure out, I don't really know much about your music taste other than what I've heard you perform, so I'm interested to hear what you've picked. So
yeah.
Tell me.
I've chosen an album that it actually came out. It's so weird when I looked up the date that it came out, because I could have sworn it came out in 2017, but it actually came out in 2016. And I think just because last year was a total write-off. So I'm kind of right in my guess of it coming out, only a few years ago. And the album that I've chosen is by the Belgian band Oathbreaker, and the album is Rhea, which is the album that I'm going to talk about today. It was my number 1 favorite album of 2016 and probably 2017 and probably even 2018. It's actually kind of changed my life in a lot of ways, and it was, a really pivotal moment for me. The moment I heard the album, it really changed my perception of heavy music.
That sounds really niche as well, a Belgian band. How did you hear of these guys?
I'd already heard of them. They'd released, I think, 2 albums before Rhea, and they're kind of a post-black metal band is the way that I would describe them. So kind of like maybe a bit hipster black metal is the way some people describe that music, like in the whole like Death Heaven thing. So they're like a post-black metal band, and their albums before Rhea were really, really heavy and not as sort of pushing boundaries as Rhea did. The albums were still really good, but basically they released Rhea and it just sounded totally different to the albums they'd released before. They really kept the heavy elements and the post-black metal sounds, but they incorporated it with this like ambient, almost moments of no music and just Caro, who's the vocalist, her voice, singing these really emotive lyrics. Like her voice was almost an instrument in itself. And, I'd heard the band before, knowing them through the heavy scene. And I kept seeing people post on social media the cover of their new album, which is sort of like these 2 hands rinsing this cloth in water. It's kind of what the image looks like. And automatically I was drawn to this image because I was like, I know Oathbreaker and I know they're a really heavy band, but this image, it looks like a really soft, gentle image, but there was also like tension in the image. So it automatically, like, it just really intrigued me to give that album a listen. And the image itself, it really perfectly sums up the album, which is like really special and unique in itself because it's like a beautiful parts of the album and really soft and delicate moments mixed with this like angry tension, which is like the hands rinsing the bit of cloth. So yeah, it's like automatically every piece of the album goes so perfectly and beautifully together, and it's like really well rounded off album, even down to the album artwork.
That's so cool. Obviously, this sounds like a very instant recognition of a great album. Was it that way, or did it take a few listens to actually be like, oh, I see the similarities and everything?
No, it was like the minute I heard the first track, I was like, I was there. It quite literally changed my life. Like, it was one of those albums. I remember where I was when I heard it. I remember where I was walking. I remember like what time of day it was. And I think I was even crying when I was listening to it. And it was while I was going through a breakup or something like really shit was happening in my life. And everything she was singing I found really relatable, and every song just like goes so perfectly into the next song, which also, as a side note, that sort of an album is my favorite type of album, when there's a really clear through line, perhaps a really clear premise or theme in an album, and therefore each song, it's almost like the album is one big song altogether, because it's like every single song goes back to this theme and weaves into each other. And that's the way that it felt when I listened to Rhea. I really felt like I just listened to this like piece of art from start to finish. There was no need for me to stop at any point. It was just like everything went through to each other so well. And it was like a moment where I realized heavy music, it doesn't have to be heavy. Like, there's even heavy moments in that album where it's just vocals, which aren't even screaming. She's actually singing, and it's sort of even the most heavy part of the album in a way.
Oh,
it's really
wow.
special the way it's done, and it's, yeah, really moved me in a lot of ways. And lyrically, she pushes the boundaries so much. It's so personal to the point that you're like, I don't even really know what she's talking about here, because it's so personal. It's like, it sounds like a really personal story, but you can take from it the pain and the trauma because of the way she's delivering the lyrics.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like performance wise, it's like so perfect. I really can't speak higher of the album. I'm obviously like really trying to sell it to you right now. I swear they haven't paid me to tell you to listen to it.
No, it's interesting how you say that even when she's singing and it's not heavy, that is the heaviest moment because of the lyrics. And I think for some people, I think for me especially, I don't hear the lyrics the first time around. Like, I hear it all as a whole musical soundscape, and if it sounds heavy, then I feel like it's heavy. But when you go and listen to it again and I focus on the lyrics, that's where it hits home a lot more when you realize what stuff is about.
Totally. And I think as well, because there are those soft vocal moments, it enhances the parts where she screams and the parts where like the music actually kicks in, and you've got like the blast beats and the really heavy guitars. It enhances that even more because of the gentle moments without the music in the background. So they've been really clever with playing with dynamics and juxtapositions and like the contrast in the sound. So and as well, it's a really engaging album because you're not just listening to like screaming for 45 minutes. You're also listening to this light and shade, which I think is a really clever thing with heavy music. It's still a freaking heavy album, but not every song is just blast beats the whole way through,
Amazing. Did you think this, because you said it was an impactful album for you, did it impact Pagan's first album, Blackwash?
Yeah, totally impacted. That's what was so pivotal for me. It made me see that with heavy music, you don't just need to write songs about hail fucking Satan. You can write songs about something really, really personal and lyrics that are actually quite beautiful or really meaningful to you. And if it's special to you and you really believe what you're saying, or you have something to say, or you have this important message you want to get across, that is the most important thing. And it really changed my perception of the way that I wrote my lyrics. You know, I no longer wanted to write lyrics for other people to necessarily be able to relate to. I
Yeah.
found that if I wrote something that I really believed and that it's something personally that had really happened to me, like, you know, heartbreak, for example, which is essentially what Pagan's album Blackwash was about,
Mm.
people are going to relate to it anyway because I'm coming from such a place of truth that they're going to be able to take something from that, even if it is a personal story. And I think there's so much more to say than trying to please people with like writing something cool. You know, write something really truthful to you. This album really showed me that. It was really changed my idea of what heavy music can be.
That's exciting. So are you experimenting more with Blood Command?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's a really good question because with Blood Command, it's actually pushed me to do a lot more clean vocal stuff.
Oh,
In
exciting.
Pagan, I didn't sing, I just screamed
Yeah.
everything. And as I've matured, I've found that, you know, there's equal power in singing as screaming. And it's been, you know, this amazing way to push me out of my comfort zone as well, that I've really been working hard in vocal training to get up to scratch for the recording we've been doing. And I'm really proud of myself because in the past with Pagan, I didn't want to sing because I never thought of myself as a singer. I
Mm.
always thought of myself as, you know, a heavy vocalist.
Yeah.
And with Blood Command, when I got the opportunity, I was like, this is a really good chance and opportunity for me to actually really push myself. And, you know, I can sing and I want to work on it and I want to be the best and most dynamic vocalist that I can be. So, yeah, it's really good with Blood Command. I've been able to do that. And I'm really excited for people to see other sides of my vocals.
That's so exciting, especially when an album is that influential. It just opens up so many more doors, I think.
Exactly. It really is an album that I put on very frequently and I just like absolutely it's stunning. I even did some research into it a while ago because I wanted to know what she was, you know,
Singing
singing
about.
about,
Yeah.
like particularly the opening track. And the you know, the album is about a friend that she lost to suicide. And when you listen to it with that in mind, the power behind her delivery, you can really feel the pain. And the performance that the whole band give, you can just feel what they're trying to say and the message that they're trying to say about depression and suicide and the portrayal of that through the pain that she's giving in the performance. It's so on point. I think that's maybe why it resonated with me so much as well, because like, you know, losing someone close to you, you feel the pain through the music. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. It's a very heavy album. It's a dark album. It's definitely not like a party album. But it's by far my favorite and most pivotal metal album I've ever listened to.
Interesting. So, do you think that if you'd heard it at not such a emotionally challenging time in your life, do you think it would still have the same impact?
Yeah, I do, because technically it's just so on point and everybody in the band is just amazing at what they do and it's just a good album.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting point as well because something that I would really recommend if you want to listen to the album and, you know, drawn to listen to the album after me talking about it, I would really suggest, and to people listening to the podcast as well, I would really suggest looking at they do one of those live audio tree sessions.
Oh,
Yeah, there's
yes.
like a YouTube filmed thing, but it's also like a really great recording of a live album. Like it's an in studio live
Yeah.
session, and they do a performance, and it is absolutely flawless. Like I'm talking, it sounds better than the album. So even
Whoa.
that in itself, like even watching them, like they're all really in the zone. And Caro, the singer, she has like her hair, she has like really long hair, and I think she's got like a hood on or something. And she's got her hair in her face for the whole performance. Like you can't, she looks like a almost like just like this shadowy figure with hands just screaming and like, singing like beautifully in parts. But you can't actually see her face for the entire performance. But it's so engaging and captivating. And that's proof that her performance in her vocal is so powerful. You don't even need to see her an expression on her face or her engaging with the camera for it to be so captivating. Like they're really on at prime of being a band when they release this album.
Oh my gosh. Sounds like one of those live art shows.
Yeah, it's so I can't explain. It's so cool. That live session is so cool. Like you really should watch it if you want to really know what I mean by the power in the delivery of the
Yeah.
vocals. Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, I definitely will. And I have, formed the habit of asking this question now because it's just so interesting what people say. And this sounds like a very intense album. What are my listening notes? How should I listen to it? Or where should I be? What should I be doing?
That's a very good question, and I think definitely be alone, and maybe
Okay.
if you go for a walk, and if you do what I did when I first heard it, go for a walk somewhere on your own with your headphones in, outside in like dusk. That's
In
what I would
dusk.
say, like when the sun is kind of setting, and give it a listen. And I think the album will resonate with you really well. Maybe in like a nature setting, like if you've got like a creek or something near your house.
Oh,
And
that's a
like,
beautiful image.
yeah, that's what I would suggest. But if you can't be bothered doing that, just chuck on the YouTube version of that audio tree and of the audio tree live, and you will love it. I can assure you.
I will definitely be doing both. That's the
You might not
whole
love it, but I'm
point.
sure you'll appreciate it, or you might at least understand what I've said about
That's amazing. Well,
it.
it definitely sounds like this album is going to stand up in future years, regardless, because, technique never changes and skill never fades. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
amazing. Especially for us non-musical folk who can't really play an instrument or, not aren't really in with the, what do they call it? Like the drop E's, or I don't really understand. But, is there like an aspect of this album that you as a musician take note of or have realized that either other people might overlook?
I think it's the power, like as I was saying earlier, my opinion is that there's so much power in just vocal without music behind it, and the power in that. Like there doesn't always have to be so much noise, and that to me is something that sets this album aside from other heavy metal albums or black metal albums. Is that the really good thing about this album is that her vocal can just sit on its own, and that's enough without anything else really going on behind it. And also that her scream is just so freaking gnarly. Like no one
Just
can really
goals.
scream like her. It's just so good. It's
Oh.
like demonic, amazing screaming, like way better than any dude could ever do. Sorry,
Yes.
truth hurts.
Amazing. Oh, well, it sounds like there we have it. The one metal album that Nikki Brumen thinks that you and I should listen to is Rhea by Oathbreaker.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for your wisdom. I can't wait to listen to it from your point of view.
Thanks, Ebony. Hail fucking Satan.